Meantime, Trump's latest comments on Muslim immigration are sparking much discussion and debate. But as One America's Cameron Kramer reports, some in the media may have ulterior motives when targeting him.
News network Al Jazeera has been one of Donald Trump's harshest critics, scrutinizing the businessman by running headlines that read, "The bigoted elephant in the room," and "Trump's untruths woo working-class whites who want to be proud again." It's not the first time the network has played up the race angle. This is Al Jazeera's coverage of the 2008 election, focusing on a small rural town in Ohio and pushing one overwhelming narrative.
This area is mostly white and working class. And here's what some have to say about presidential candidate Barack Obama.
I'm afraid if he wins, the black will take over.
That prompted the Washington Post to run an editorial in response, calling the coverage, quote, "fodder served up by Al Jazeera to feed anti-American sentiment overseas." The columnist, an African-American, went further, saying the racist comments were opinions stated by a dwindling breed of diehards. It wasn't the first time the network has been accused of anti-American sentiment. A decade ago, Al Jazeera not only drew the ire of other journalists, but the United States government. During the Iraq War, General John Abizaid singled out the network for its coverage, the official transcript reading, quote, "It's always interesting how Al Jazeera manages to be at the scene of a crime whenever a hostage shows up or some other problem happens to be there. So they have not been truthful in their reporting. They have not been accurate." Senior military spokesman Mark Kimmett echoed the sentiment, saying, quote, "Change the station to a legitimate, authoritative, honest news station. The stations that are showing Americans intentionally killing women and children are not legitimate news sources. That is propaganda, and that is lies." Then Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld also blasted the network in 2004 for its coverage of civilian deaths during the Iraq War.
I can definitively say that what Al Jazeera is doing is vicious, inaccurate, and inexcusable.
By 2011, Rumsfeld still hadn't backed down.
You keep making assertions which are fundamentally false.
From 2011 to January of this year, Al Jazeera's stance on Trump could stem from the ideology of its leadership. A leaked email from an Al Jazeera English executive to the newsroom details words and phrases the network will not use in its stories. They are extremist, terrorist or terrorism, Islamist, and jihad, specifically noting one person's terrorist is another's freedom fighter. A different section is devoted to the use of the words militants, radicals, and insurgents, all of which the network has banned, choosing to instead use the blanket term fighters. Now compare that rhetoric to the vocabulary found in a typical Trump speech.
You hear the term radical Islamic terrorism.
Trump said 7 words in that clip, 3 of which have been explicitly banned from being used in stories on Al Jazeera. It's plain to see the network has a fundamental problem with the Republican frontrunner. But members of the station also have a problem with the mainstream media. Al Jazeera America producer Hashim Saeed criticized ABC News for what he viewed as not paying respect to accused mass shooter Tafshin Malik by showing images where she did not wear a burqa. When hit with initial criticism on Twitter, Saeed did not relent, saying ABC was disrespectful. Only after a massive backlash ensued did the producer issue an apology and pull the original tweet. Al Jazeera's previous battles with the U.S. on issues in the Middle East paint a picture of its current snafu with Donald Trump. And while its producers take to Twitter to illustrate their views regarding portrayals of Muslims in the media, a media mogul also took to Twitter. But this time it was to back a pause in refugee movement to the U.S. Rupert Murdoch, the media mogul and founder of Fox, wrote this tweet. Murdoch followed that up by clarifying he was not endorsing Trump, but recent events, namely Murdoch being critical of a press conference about the San Bernardino shooting, may have prompted the Australian-born billionaire to change his opinion on the immigration subject. As recently as 2014, Murdoch supported amnesty, writing in a Wall Street Journal op-ed that the U.S. needed to do away with the cap in H-1B visas. Now he's calling for a pause regarding refugees. One media mogul has already changed his views, even if others in the media are quick to push specific narratives, and have been for over a decade. Cameron Kramer, One America News.